Can you give me a summary of the events leading up to this? Like the background of what happened?
Yeah, at the end of July, an 80-year-old woman named Julie Jaman was at the YMCA swimming, and she was in the locker room taking a shower. She was naked in the shower, and she heard a male voice. And she called out and confronted the male voice, asked, "Do you have a penis? What are you doing in here?" The Y then banned her from the Y for life for complaining about that and for asking if he was a man.
So what's brought you out here today in Port Townsend?
To make a stand that what happened on Monday night, the 15th of August, was not okay. The city of Port Townsend had a stand down order and let 400 people attack us to speak in our mind. We're here to protest that.
Well, a couple of weeks ago I came out to support Julie Jaman because she was thrown out of the YMCA because she was very frightened by a man being in the dressing room, especially because there were young girls there, and when she complained about it, she lost her membership, and so we came out to protest that and to have a press conference, and a bunch of TRAs, Antifa, showed up and just really were aggressive and very threatening, shutting down our voices so that so you couldn't hear any of the speakers. It was just really obscene, actually very, I was embarrassed for them, and that's the way they behave every time we try to speak anything about biological reality, women's sex-based rights. Anytime we talk about any of what's happening right now, this is what takes place. And they're behaving themselves right now because we have a whole entire crew of police officers over here, but just know that this is not the norm, okay? Not at all.
I organized this event. Essentially, back on August 15th, I was out here filming a press conference that was supposed to take place. It was being held by a bunch of, I guess they're called TERFs. They're essentially feminists who believe in women's rights, and they wanted to have a press conference regarding a 80-year-old woman who was banned from the YMCA for making a big deal about a man in the locker room. And so while I was out here filming it, I was watching these people get attacked. I was watching the police just kind of stand around and not do much, and it was rough. So as I filmed it, there was people watching it, and people were contacting me afterwards saying that they would like to do something. They'd like to come down and do kind of a follow-up rally or something like that. And through no fault of my own, I ended up being in charge of it, and that's why we're here today, because we don't believe that it's okay for the city to sit here and say things like, "I'm glad that these women got attacked," and that I'm glad that this woman got kicked out of the locker room or the YMCA because she's not okay with a man in the locker room. And there's just so many things that's been going on here that's just not okay, and them getting attacked on the 15th it was horrible, absolutely horrible.
Well, I support Julie and her right to swim in the pool and to not be exposed to male genitalia in the women's locker room, and also her right to not expose herself to someone of the other gender.
Well, I was here on the 15th. I feel very strongly about women's rights and the infringement of those rights, so that's why I came up on the 15th. And when I heard about this one, I wanted to come up again and be able to speak.
Then my question, the second one was, what personally an example of this occurrence have you seen in your personal life or locally beyond just here?
Oh, okay.
It's been happening. It's been happening everywhere, because at this point it's socially okay for men to use women's facilities. And it's not all men, but some men who use those facilities do have ill intent and there's been assaults, and it's not just bathrooms, it's prisons, it's homeless shelters, it's domestic violence support groups. And there's a reason that women need these spaces away from men, because many of us have been victims of sexual violence. And so when you hear a male voice in a space where you're not expecting it, and where you're in a vulnerable position, maybe with your pants down or naked in a locker room, that causes a post-traumatic fear reaction if you've been sexually assaulted. And it's not a matter of being against trans people, it's more a matter of respecting women and what we have fought so hard to get, which is control of access to our bodies.
There was a trans woman here. I was homeless here for many years, and there was a man that identified as a woman, and he tried to get the city to help him. He had been threatened of rape, he'd been beat up, he got protective orders against the city. I mean, tried to get him with the police. I fought for him, and I fought for Michael Almain, a homeless guy that the city did just went against. And so when I saw all these people ganging up against Julie, I wasn't really involved in the original issue because I'm like, well, that's their issue. But when I saw Pride and the trans activists going against this woman, then I stood and spoke because I know about the local politics.
Okay, well, the first time I saw it was actually in Eugene, Oregon. I went down to see a gentleman give a speech, and I paid a lot of money for my hotel room, a lot of time to drive down there, like a lot of people. And he was there to talk about the environment. And all of them came in, not this crowd, I guess, another crowd of them, came in and totally shut him down and did not allow him to give his talk at the public library. And for me, I entered into this really not as a feminist, I entered into it as a concerned citizen about the freedom of speech, and I became a feminist afterwards, radical, not liberal. So then that was one time, and it was really, the police once again didn't do anything about it. Derek didn't get to give his talk. It was just absurd. And then the next time I saw it was in Seattle at the Seattle Library. Women, all the conservatives, rad femmes, Christians, everybody gathered together it was a wolf event, and same thing happened. They tried to shut us down by blowing off bazookas, and on and on. I mean, I could tell you several. So this is a really regular thing. If they know that we're going to be speaking, they gather their people, they come and act like maniacs, really, and they just shut our voices down by being really loud and drowning us out, and we're not heard. And the thing is, too, we never get on the news. I mean, Fox News every once in a while we'll have one of our women on, but the thing is that the media is owned by the left, and they're controlling all of it, and so we don't get heard. So they only hear from their side.
I really don't have any. I don't feel like I have any personal experience because I'm not a woman. So I don't know what it's like to be a woman in the women's locker room being exposed to men in that space that should be a safe space.
Well, I mean, I own, or used to own until this morning, a YouTube channel called The Common Sense Conservative. I've been filming political events and protests for the last 7 years, and I've seen multiple times over the years where if a group who does not toe the line of the far radical left decides to have like an opinion or an event, then they're often attacked. I must say, I wasn't necessarily surprised that the event was attacked on the 15th, but I was very surprised that I was the only right-winger there. And it was literally left on left. The people who were having the press conference, they were leftists. They voted Democrat most of their lives, all their lives, and they were getting attacked by leftists who, they probably agree on a whole bunch of different things, but just not men in locker rooms being allowed. But I mean, I've had these violent extremists, you know, I've been put on kill lists. They've come to my house and destroyed my property. You know, when it comes to what these people are capable of, there really is no limit. I mean, these people are absolutely insane. And the fact that the president decided to sit there and say that the MAGA right or whatever is the biggest threat to democracy after we've had 3 years of riots in the streets and people dying in the streets by the left is just it's insane. These people on the other side of the barricades all day today, they live in a completely alternate universe void of any reality, common sense, or reason. It's truly baffling to me.
Then a fourth question, I suppose, was they brought up that apparently the man or the trans woman in this case, claimed to be a ward for the 2 children, quote unquote, that were undressing. How do you go to thinking over the idea that they were wards, but they only decided to retain them as employees or volunteers for the Y, when in other cases an outright man would be fired on the spot? Then my third question was relating to the fact they said that the employee was apparently a ward of the 2 children that were undressing in front of her as a trans woman. How do you reflect on that in the fact that if it were anyone else of any other identification, especially in this political climate, they would be fired post-haste, but instead they were kept, and then as a result they only updated after they had decided not to scrutinize them?
I think it's atrocious. I mean, what does this world come to? An old lady is being accosted for standing up to for her right to privacy. I'm sorry, but women have a right to privacy in these spaces, and men should not be in there. It's that simple. Male employees should only be in there after hours, like if they need to clean the space, let's say, and you can like put up signs that saying the area is being cleaned. That's pretty normal. But as far as, you know, during regular business hours, men just shouldn't be in there. There's no reason for it. It's shocking to me that she would be the one persecuted for standing up to herself, and everyone is rallying behind this man in a woman's changing room. I never thought I would see the day. I don't even know how to wrap my head around how these people are rationalizing their position. I think a lot of it comes down to fear. These people sense that that's the popular position that they should take so that they themselves will not be persecuted. And I don't know how that position came to have this much power over people, but you know, I guess people are just embracing insanity for whatever reason.
They're protecting only one class. The trans woman has more rights than the 80-year-old. What about respecting our elders? You know, old gals say weird stuff. So do young whippersnappers. You don't sick a mob on them. But yes, they have a rule there, the rule of 3. It's not about trans, gay, whatever. It's anybody. It's 2 adults with the children. They didn't have 2 adults with the child. And then they didn't have a separate facility for people to use that were uncomfortable. Now they do. So they've kind of admitted they were wrong by now having that they haven't reinstated her. So that issue is easy. I'm a spiritual leader. I have my own church here. What I'd have done is been like, oh, whoa, now let her get dressed and let's talk about this. I'd have made both sides feel good, had both sides had human rights and equal rights, but instead the pride community, of which I used to be a part of as a lesbian here, they attacked this woman, and that's why I stood up for her. And I got attacked. Robert Zerfink saved my life, and I'm not going to, and he experienced it as well, and he came here so that we could speak and we could stand up against the city and say it wasn't okay what they did to those women.
Well, it's complicated. I think men can make excellent caretakers of children, and I don't deny men the opportunity to care for or teach children. But in this case, where he was in the bathroom with, I believe, two younger girls, and he was helping them with their swimsuits, I don't think it's appropriate that he was allowed to be in there alone with them. He was an employee. They did a background check on them, which was good. But I still just don't feel comfortable with a man being alone with the children in the restroom. I don't think Clementine Adams had ill intent. But one thing that a lot of people don't consider is it's teaching little girls that it's okay to get undressed around men, and that it's comfortable to get undressed around men. And that could be setting them up for somebody who does have ill intent toward them.
Honestly, there's no excuse. I think there's no excuse ever for there to be a person with male genitalia in a woman's facility, in a woman's changing area, locker room, bathroom, doesn't matter. I don't believe that is a risk that should ever be taken. I don't care if there's special circumstances. I don't care. We have unisex restrooms, we have family restrooms, we have all sorts of different accommodations that can be made and have been made for people with disabilities, for people of all different walks and whatever. Honestly, there's no excuse, no reason, no acceptability for it at all. Ward of the person or not, it's irrelevant. The fact that there was a person with male genitalia that was in the locker room, even if the children were belonging to this person or whatever, there's still other women in there, there's potential for other children to be in there. It's unacceptable.
Well, I think shame on the YMCA. It was founded, what does the YMCA acronym stand for? Young Men's Christian Association. And the founder, I must be rolling over in their grave because they've gone from Christian to pedophilia. So I don't know how they can justify this. I don't know why people would even keep their memberships and be in support of an organization that puts women and little girls in danger.